are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Thank you for making us your first listen. Hey, as you can probably see, I'm recording part of this outside of Sonny McLean's Irish Pub in Santa Monica, California. And I'll tell you why I'm there in just a minute. I'm not going to do the whole podcast standing out here on Wilshire Boulevard. We're available on all the free podcast catches you get, and here on YouTube. And you can follow us on Twitter at Locked On MLB Pod. Same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And I'm dropping this on the 24th day of October 2021. Now, why am I here? Why am I here at a Boston-themed bar in Los Angeles County? Well, first of all, I live in Los Angeles County. And I was planning on coming here to record me watching Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. And the Red Sox put a slight cramp in that plan because, well, they lost. They lost, and there is no Game 7 of the American League Championship Series. That didn't happen. And so I had already made my plans to come out here today, so I figured why not come and watch Game 6 of the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves series and be here. You know, it was probably not be as crowded, but it would probably have a lot of Los Angeles fans here. And I decided to come, and I sat amongst the Dodger fans, the many Dodger fans who were here for the game, and it was it was eerily similar to what happened to the Red Sox. And the Dodgers bats just died at the worst time. And Rosario got the big 3-run home run, and that was it for the scoring. Or at least for Atlanta. And whoops. And it's tough to win a series when you don't get hits. I'm going to break down most of the series when I get back to the studio to record. I actually was going to record inside Sonny's, but it's getting a little loud. It's getting a little loud in there, and I figured the sound is going to be garbage enough here on Wilshire Boulevard. Look I love coming to Sonny's because, especially when I was living in Santa Monica with my brother for a while, and it was just a place to be amongst other Red Sox fans here in California. And, I really wanted to have a communal experience here for this game. I wanted to be amongst other people cheering it. And, the fact of the matter is this. The Dodgers put together a terrific team, won 106 ball games, put up a great fight against the Giants, won that thrilling game against St. Louis, but the Braves bullpen just locked antlers with them, and this is what we got. And I was around a bunch of other Dodger fans, including another one. I was sitting at the bar next to someone named Paul, which is my first name. No one calls me that. People call me Sully. But we were chatting about the Dodgers, and there were Dodger fans who were cheering them on. And for that day, I became a Dodger fan, if for no other reason. Don't get mad at me, Braves fans. If for no other reason, so we could have the excitement of a Game 7 on Sunday night. It didn't happen. And there was a lot of disappointment I saw from Dodger fans there. There was a lot of kind of a sense of incredulity that this team that they had basically kept adding Hall of Famers to, that they kept adding, Scherzer, and they added Pujols, and they brought this big player and that big player in, all these different people that they added, and people are saying, oh, it's almost not fair. It's almost not fair, all the people. Well, then reality kicks in, injuries kick in, and the Braves, my goodness, They just punched all the right buttons. And so we have to take a look at the legacy of this Dodgers team. Section 2 is going to be all about Atlanta, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming World Series and what it means. But it's interesting that this Dodger team has gone on this amazing run since they won the division title in 2013. And probably no coincidence, that's when the new ownership took over. And they've won the division title every year except this year. They were the wild card team this year. But they had several trips to the World Series. They won the World Series in a truncated season. There's many great moments, many great superstars, many all-time great Dodgers have played in this run. It's one of the great runs that they've had. Some of the greatest Dodger teams in their history have been in the middle of this streak. And yet, they have the one championship, and it was in the weird 60-game season. And it kind of reminded me, it's almost apt that it's the Braves, because the Braves who won, because the legacy of that great run in the 90s into the 2000s is kind of like this. Year in and year out, they're in the playoffs, many trips to the World Series, and they won the one World Series in a shortened season, 95, against the Cleveland Indians. What is the legacy of this Dodger team? Is this an all-time National League great team? We still won't have a National League team winning back-to-back titles, being back-to-back World Series champions since the Big Red Machine of 1975 and 1976. That remains the last National League team to win the World Series in back-to-back years. We've had the Toronto Blue Jays win back-to-back titles, and the Yankees repeated in the 90s. And they were the last team to repeat. And there's going to be no repeat this year. And a repeat championship this year would have been legacy sealing, I think, especially because it was a 162-game season. And of course, facing Houston would have been sort of the icing on the cake in so many ways. But we now have to look at this Dodger team as a very good legacy, but I really think they need that second title to cement itself as an all-time one. I had the same thoughts about the Phillies, whose run was not nearly as long as this one, but they needed that second title to cement themselves. And we're going to see. We don't know what Kershaw is going to do, and if he's going to come back. We don't know what, Scherzer, when his arm gets dead, when veterans say, hey, my arm is feeling dead, no matter how great you are, it could be the end pretty soon. Just ask Cliff Lee. Just ask, Tim Lincecum and a lot of those great Giants pitchers. When you compare the legacy of the Giants in the 2010s and the Dodgers now, which legacy is greater? The Giants with their 3 championships, but down years in between? Or the Dodgers always in the playoffs, but having one title to show for it? I really thought the Dodgers were going to win tonight. I really did. We're going to break down the game a little bit in the second segment because there's some specific stuff, and I don't necessarily want to do all my podcast recording holding my phone up on Wilshire Boulevard. Hold for sound! Hold for sound! Now, they're not listening to me in Wilshire. I didn't get a permit. But that's it for the Dodgers. The champs are gone, and we'll have a brand new champ this year. And if you had told me that the Atlanta Braves were going to be 4 wins away from a World Series title, I would have put you in an insane asylum at the trade deadline. But here we are. Here we are. And I can't help but think about the Giants right now. They won 107, lost on the check swing, and at least Giant fans don't have to see the Dodgers celebrate again. They're probably a little bit giddy right now. But there we go. Salute the Dodgers. And our second segment, we're going to break down the game. I'm going to get back in the warmth of my studio. We're going to break down the game and think about what it means for the Braves moving forward and how they pulled this off. Hey, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to store all those parts that you need. Why endure the pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait for the person behind the counter to order the parts on their computer, choosing only the brands that their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer, and go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need are at rockauto.com. Okay, it's now Sunday. I want to apologize. I was looking over the video that I shot outside of Sonny McLean's, and I very rarely was making eye contact with the camera. I think part of it was that there was a lot of people walking around me, and some of them were asking for money, and some of them were, let's just say, not sober. And so part of me was keeping an eye out for them. So I apologize. I was not making as much eye contact as I would have liked to have done at that. But hey, that's the danger when you try to go on location. I actually wanted to shoot inside the bar, but it was so loud in there that everything would have been completely unusable. Let's talk about the game a little bit. Okay. We talked a little bit about the Dodgers legacy and how that's now, the Dodgers are going to have so many of their players hitting free agency that the core of this, the look of the Dodgers team going into 2022 is just going to be so different. And this is going to feel like a lost opportunity. And there were tons of lost opportunities in the game. And I want to just sort of go over the fact that, Eddie Rosario, of course, was the hero, hit the 3-run home run in the 4th inning. And I want to give Snitker, the manager of the Braves, a little bit of a tip of the hat because he rolled the dice in the 4th inning by bringing in, who's the pinch hitter that he brought in? He brought in Adrianza in the 4th with 2 outs and a runner on and a tie game. And it was a risky move because that lifted Anderson out of the ballgame. And Anderson, save for 1 inning, was pitching quite well through the first 4 innings. And they could have gone probably another inning or 2 with Anderson. Brought in Adrianza. Adrianza came in and he got a pinch hit to extend the inning. And so then there were 2 outs and 2 on when Rosario stepped up, and then he hit the 3-run home run that put the Braves up for good. So, you got to give credit for when a manager rolls the dice and the move works out. And you also have to give a ton of credit to the bullpen that Minter and Smith both did fantastic jobs. Jackson did not do a very good job out of the pen, but he was saved by Matzek. And Matzek gave really one of the most amazing relief performances I've seen in a postseason game. I'm going to have to sit down and write down the best relief performances I ever saw, of which a pitcher is brought into the cauldron with everything on the line and escapes. And that's exactly what Matzek did. The Dodgers rallied, and in one of my favorite matchups, Charlie Steiner pointed this out, Jackson led up a double to Pollock. Jackson Pollock. It was a mess. Down the left field line, put a run on the board for Los Angeles and made it 4-2 with runners on 2nd and 3rd and nobody out. And Matzek coming out of the bullpen. Now, Matzek is a fine pitcher, but I didn't think of him as someone who was about to dominate the team, especially because, Pujols was coming up. I knew that Betts would be coming up. There was enough batters that were coming up that made you say, okay, a deep fly ball would make it a 1-run game. There was a possibility that the Dodgers could have tied the game without a hit. If someone had hit a ground ball to deep second, the play would have been the first, a run would have come home with 4-3, runner on 3rd with 1 out. Then a deep fly ball would have tied the game. You didn't even need a hit. But a single probably would have scored Pollock, and you have a tie ball game. You have this game tied up. And I'm there at Sonny McLean's. Tons of Dodger fans around me, including a fellow named Paul next to me. Everyone's going ape. And Matzek came in and struck out strike out the next 3 batters he faced. And it was startling that the Dodgers couldn't get one of those 2 runs in. And it goes to something that is kind of a philosophical sticking point when I know a lot of people, and again, I'm going to sound like old man Sully here. I swear to God, I'm not. There's a lot of people in the data-driven world, in the sabermetric worlds, who poo-poo worrying about strikeouts. It doesn't matter if you strike out. You're better off striking out than other kinds of outs. And I'm watching the game last night, realizing that if any of those hitters put the ball into play, then there would have been a possibility that, first of all, there was no double play in line. But yeah, some bad things could happen. You had a line drive that could be caught and someone doubled up. You could into a double play if the bases were loaded. There are bad things that can happen. But there are also good things. There could be an error. It could find the hole. Someone could double clutch. There could be a fluke. All these different little things can happen. And we saw that earlier in the game when Bellinger tied the game up and beat the shift. The shift had him all the way over here. He had a ball which would have been a routine grounder to short. And instead, it was a game-tying single. I'm not saying shifts don't work. I'm not saying sabermetrics and data analysis is wrong, but I am saying that to completely poo-poo the concept of strikeouts doesn't take in mind situations like that where you need to put the bat on the ball. You needed to put the ball in play. The possibility of something happening increases when you actually hit the ball. That's kind of basic stuff. And so the Dodgers' absolute best chance to turn the game around, turn the series around, send it to a final game, all this other stuff was put right down into the cesspool because of 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out. 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out. It was like Bugs Bunny throwing his slow pitch. And so here we are. And the Dodgers didn't score then. And the score remained 4-2, and that was that. And that was at that moment, it was kind of like you have the moments in a postseason series where most of the times there's a moment where you realize, all right, this series is over. This is the moment where they can't come back from. The best series are the ones that doesn't happen. The best series are the ones where it goes right to the final pitch, and you go like, I have no idea who's winning this one. I don't have a clue who's winning this one. And I've seen my share of series like that. 30 years ago, when the Braves played their first World Series as a member of the Atlanta Braves, as representing the city of Atlanta, I suppose I should say, was the single greatest World Series I ever saw in my life, where they played Minnesota. And that was, I never felt that series was over until I saw the Twins celebrating. And I've seen a couple of series like that where I'm going, I don't know who's going to win this. These two teams have locked antlers. Sadly, one of the World Series I can say that about, well, I can't completely say this. I was going to say the 2017 series between the Astros and the Dodgers. But the fact of the matter is the Astros when they bombed Yu Darvish in Game 7, the Dodgers never really got it going. And so, yeah, there was a point where I was like, no, this Dodgers team just is not going to rally. And, they kept it close. It was still 4-2 at the end. And you're thinking, well, they didn't have Matzik. I mean, I would have pitched Matzik in the third inning because that's how dominant he was and how few pitches he was throwing. But they brought in Will Smith. No, not that Will Smith. No, not that Will Smith. The other Will Smith. He got 1, 2, 3. And you think about it, that double that Pollock hit in the 7th inning, where they had runners on second and third, nobody out. The tying run was at second base with nobody out. And not another Dodger batter reached base after that. It's tough to win like that. And you got to give, like, the lion's share of the credit has to go to the Atlanta Braves and their pitching staff. And it's going to make the World Series, and we're going to get into what the World Series matchup is going to be, but it's going to make the World Series kind of interesting if both bullpens are firing on all cylinders like this. But that's our matchup, and there's something about the Atlanta Braves I want to bring up in the final segment, because I think that it is for the lack of a better word, a tale of hope that teams may have moving forward. And it could make the process of whether or not a team tanks or not something that is, well, something in the rearview mirror because of what the Atlanta Braves did. They were no sure bet to get to the playoffs when they were floundering in the middle of July and looking like they were just going to have a lost season. But here we are. And if you're going to make any bets, go to BetOnline. It remains the number one spot for all the baseball, basketball, and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, the baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, UFC, right down to your favorite Las Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. You know, the Atlanta Braves are in the World Series. And I was thinking about this morning when I was trying to go through what I was going to talk about in today's podcast. And I said at the beginning of the year that chances are the team to represent the National League in the World Series was going to come out of the state of California. But I said if anyone could have upset the two teams that I thought were well on their way to 100 wins from California, it was going to be the Atlanta Braves. So go back, check the shows. That's what I said. And it's kind of like when someone gets a question right, even though their reasoning for the question is wrong. That's kind of what happened here. Going into this season, I thought the Braves were heads and shoulders the best team in the National League East. I thought they were a team that obviously got to within one game of the World Series in the truncated season. And here we go. And they said they're going to be just better. And they have a clearer road to it. And so I thought, yeah, this is the team. This team's going to be the challenger. First of all, I was right that two teams from California were going to be 100-win teams. I knew one of them was going to be the LA Dodgers. I just thought the other one was going to be the Padres, not the Giants. And as it turns out, the Braves did become the team that kept the state of California out of the World Series this year. Just not in the manner that I thought it was going to happen. You know, for most of the year, I called the Braves one of the most disappointing and underachieving teams in baseball. They were a sub 500 team after April. Final day of May, they were sub 500. Final day of June, they were sub 500. Final day of July, they were sub 500. In fact, they were a sub 500 team as late as August 4th. August 4th, with their best player down, the trade deadline behind them. They made a flurry of moves, but they were still a losing team. Now, when the championship was won last night and the Braves won the pennant for the first time this century, the first time since 1999, I couldn't help but think of the Mets. I'm sorry, Mets fans, but I couldn't stop thinking about your team because the Mets were in first place well into August. And then they dropped out of first place because of the Phillies. The Phillies climbed into first place. The Atlanta Braves didn't climb back into first place until, drumroll, August 15th. August 15th, mid-August, they took over. Now, they went on that spectacular win streak where they won 14 out of 16 games. And they took advantage of teams like the Nationals and the Marlins and the Orioles. But guess what? They took advantage of them and they won the games. They won the games they needed to win. Then they went on another great streak at the end of the year where they wound up going, 12-2 to finish the season. including key sweeps of the Mets and the Phillies. I couldn't help but think about the Mets, and I couldn't help think about the Phillies. The Phillies, who tried to patchwork it together, climbed in first place for about a minute and a half, made a strong run at the Braves. Remember that they whittled that lead down. They whittled the lead down down the stretch, and they got to within a game and a half. A game and a half, and they were only 2.5 back when they had the showdown in late September. Remember that? A little thing here, a little thing there, and the Phillies would have been in this place. I couldn't help but think of the Brewers. I couldn't help but think of the Brewers, who I thought were going to win the World Series when the playoffs began. And they certainly had the pitching, but their bats just went dead. Save for Rowdy Tellez, the bats were non-existent. If they had a couple of rallies here and a couple of rallies there and got past Atlanta, they would have faced a depleted Dodger team, and we'd probably be looking at the Brewers versus the Astros in one of the most confusing World Series for time travelers, who would say, wait, which team's the American League team? Which one's the National? No, the Astros are a National League team. The Brewers are the American League team. Not anymore. They switched. I say switch them back. Actually, I say realign and make regional divisions, but that's a completely different podcast. The Braves will become the poster child for teams looking at themselves saying, we're underachieving, we're injury riddled, we're sub 500. But wait a minute, the Braves made it to the World Series. They did that because the Mets were in first place, but didn't put the aft thrusters on, didn't put distance between them. If the Mets had put a little distance between them and the Phillies and the Braves wouldn't have gone for it. Because even though they were sub 500 at the trade deadline, it wasn't like they were 20 games out. They were only 5 games out. And they said, you know what if we just patchwork, get players who are major leaguers? Because you're not asking them to be superstars for a year. You're asking for 2 months and maybe a couple of great weeks. One of those players they got was Eddie Rosario, who was playing for Cleveland at the time. Picked him up, major leaguer, put him in, did very well, and hey, he happened to have the best time to play his best baseball. That could be the legacy of the 2021 Braves, is that they're brought up kind of the way that in September when teams are like, we're about 5 or 6 back. Yes, but so were the Colorado Rockies. You heard their name come up all the time when the Cardinals were going on their big winning streak to find themselves in the wild card game. Let's hear it for Brian Snitker, manager of the Atlanta Braves. Fine job that he did. And let's hear it for the team. Excuse me. Let's hear it for Alex Anthopoulos and for the farm director, Ben Sistovic, who I think I said correctly, and their scouting director, Dana Brown, for putting the team together the right way and finding themselves in the World Series, despite finishing every month until August below the 500 mark. Keep that in mind, teams that are floating around. A couple of games out, 4 or 5 games out, not looking that great. Patch your team together with veterans and cross your fingers and hope things go for the best, because that's exactly what just happened in Atlanta. Now, we're going to be doing a preview of the World Series coming up on Monday's show. Tuesday's show, I'm going to be having some thoughts about the fan bases of Atlanta, of Houston, and some overall thoughts about the World Series possibly extending into November. I have problems with that. But right now, hey, the Dodger run, we're going to see a very different Dodger team next year. Could very well continue their streak, because remember when the Atlanta Braves went on the big, long streak winning the division year in and year out, oftentimes there was a great turnover of people. And some of the really familiar names weren't always there, didn't stick around for the whole time. And there was a turnover, but they kept going. So maybe that's the case. Maybe the Dodgers will win the World Series next year. But chances are it's not going to be with Clayton Kershaw. Chances are it's not going to be with Corey Seager. chances are Max Scherzer is going to find a home, and a bunch of other players are going to find homes, and some of the players are going to retire, and some of the players are going to get old, and some of the players are going to burn out. It's been a great run for the Dodgers and your fans. Probably deserved another title, but they did get the one. And the Braves, well, they may get their 1-2. 1-2, 3-4. This has been Locked On MLB. And I wanted to say one more quick thing. This is a strange anniversary for your pal Sully. Back then, I used to do this Sully Baseball Daily podcast, of which I did 365 of them a year between the end of the 2012, actually the middle of the 2012 postseason. I did right to the beginning of the 2017 season, on the verge of that season, every single day. I didn't miss a day, even went to the hospital, even when terrible things were happening. I did one every single day. And the anniversary was October 24th, 2012, was when I started the Sully Baseball Daily podcast. 9 years ago today. And while I haven't been doing it 365 days a year, I'm really happy to be doing it most days here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And for those of you who came over here from the Sully Baseball Daily podcast to join this one, floated along the River Sully, then thank you for coming along. And some of you are new and seeing the little clubhouse that I do here. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you keep going, because I'm going to keep doing this show throughout the off season. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball, as you can see right there on YouTube. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Going over the final game of the National League Championship Series and taking a look at what we have to offer come World Series time. This is Locked On MLB for the 24th day of October 2021. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. And hey, one last thing, that the Locked On MLB Prospect Show is going on. Thanks for making Locked On MLB your first listen every day. Let's make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Aaron Lighton, who's been a guest on this show, is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available on all platforms.